Here's a dirty little secret that nobody's going to want to hear. Realtors and lenders alike. Here it is. Ready?
Ready.
If your employer could, they would fire you today. All of them. None of them want you. That's the truth. Now, it doesn't mean they don't like you. Doesn't mean they don't appreciate you. But the fact is, they want to get rid of you, and they're right for wanting to do that because you are the most expensive component in a loan. If I can close my production and I don't have to pay you 250 basis points, your ass is gone tomorrow. Every single thing that we have done in the industry for the past 2 decades has been designed to get rid of you.
Possibility Podcast listeners, if you don't know who the hell this guest is today, then you have been living under a mortgage rock for as long as you've been in the business, because Brian Stevens has been gracing his presence on the interwebs for as long as I can remember with the National Real Estate Post. And Brian and I actually haven't talked in a little while. We've stayed in touch a lot over the years through Lab Coat Agents, through National Real Estate Post. And I reached out to him today and said, hey, dude, what's up? And it turned into, hey, let's exchange podcast guests today. But the question that I asked him that I thought I've got to just bring right to the surface: when is the business going to flip? I want to know, because you are deep with conversations with some of the highest level people in the business. So Brian, please save us.
Spring. It's spring. It's spring. We're already starting to see some of the numbers. There's a real interesting report that came out from Fannie Mae. It's their housing forecast for February 2024. I was kind of going through and putzing out and checking out the numbers. Now, you do understand that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac put together would be the largest company in the history of the world, the most profitable company in the history of the world. They're at the center of everything housing in the United States. So I got to figure that company could probably hire some people who are some of the best prognosticators in the country. So it's really not even me who's saying this. It's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Also, because they influence so much what takes place with rates, so much with what's going on with the Fed, so much what's taking place with the Treasury, and so much from that's dealing with policy from the House Financial Services Committee, the Senate Banking Committee, from the executive branch. There's no better authority when it comes to rates than Fannie Mae. You could certainly make that argument. So when I was checking out their February 24 housing forecast, I started looking at what they were projecting for 2024. So what they're suggesting right now is by the end of the first quarter of 2024, we're going to see rates at 6.5%. A slight dip, certainly going in the right direction. We've kind of felt that the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. The second quarter, they're looking at it going down to 6.3. The third quarter, they're looking at it going down to 6.1. And the anticipation is by the end of this year, we're going to be sitting somewhere in the 5s. So again, it's not my projections, it's theirs projections. Now, interest rates is kind of interesting because interest rates are only going to be as effective as to how much and what the relationship is to the amount of inventory that we have on hand. If we still find ourselves in a limited inventory, rates go down to 1%. It's not going to make a hill of beans of difference if we don't have the inventory. But rates, specifically as it pertains to loan officers, this is where real opportunity starts to kind of shine again. We've already seen that we've got $1.3 trillion in revolving debt, higher than it's ever been. Did you know that our revolving debt has now exceeded our mortgage debt in this country? I mean, the numbers in the superlatives are crazy. And Jerome Powell over at the Fed just said, I don't know about this whole thing. Inflation still looks like it's a problem. We're probably not going to be doing anything with our balance sheet or with the Fed fund rate. So the thinking is, well, is this going to, with what the Fed is doing, is it at odds with what Fannie Mae is saying? If the Fed says that they're not going to be moving rates. Well, and I say the answer is probably no. I don't think it is, because it's really about their balance sheet and what they do more so than the Fed fund rate. But they're coming out with a hard stance saying, listen, inflation is still kind of an issue. However, when you look at foreign markets, dude, I got this great picture. I'll try to get it over to you. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know what's been going on in Japan or in China. It's kind of funny. They're taking buildings from like those Evergrande, the largest construction company in the world. They're building 2/3 of Manhattan right now at the exact same time. One company, imagine building all of Manhattan from the ground up at once and then getting 2/3 of the way done and saying, hey, we ran out of money and our construction workmanship is for crap. we're going to bust. All of like that international money is just like losing their minds about it. So I think there's a lot of international money that's looking to park itself in places that are safe. Some of those markets could be found in the United States, which is still deemed to be safe despite our spending problems. And so, buying into treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, yeah, I think that kind of coincides with what Fannie is saying here. So I think rates could come down a little bit. That debt that we're carrying that I was talking about a moment ago is going to remain a problem, and there's no real easy fix for it. Now, here's a couple things I want you to think about. 46% of people who own homes right now are still deemed to be equity rich. That means that 50% of their house's value that they have in the form of equity. The numbers are astounding. Okay. Again, record debt that we're carrying, massive amounts of equity, and rates dropping down. The further that we go down the road, the more that debt that we're carrying as individuals, that revolving credit card debt at the 28, 29% rates, the worse that's going to get. That's not a correctable situation on the path that we're on right now. These homeowners who are sitting on all that equity are going to have to do something about it, or the sheriff's going to come and kick them out of their house. So they don't want to come off the threes that they have right now. We all know that story. But if we start to see rates dipping down into the sixes and to the fives, it's going to be a little bit more palatable. And we're already seeing our cash out debt consolidation refinances increasing as a part of the market share for the mortgage market. But when our rates start dipping down to the low sixes and in the fives, a lot of these folks are going to feel more pressure in the coming months. They're going to have to make a decision with their mortgage or deal with some type of modification if that's made available again. But the point being, if Fannie Mae is right, who knows what's going to happen in the purchase market, but it's definitely going to bring back refinance opportunities for loan officers. And again, when we're looking at who's going to be the authority on the direction of rates, I couldn't pick anybody who's probably going to be more accurate in terms of their projections than Fannie Mae. Yeah. So I think the spring, I think there's a lot of reason to think that spring's going to be good. And I'll tell you what, there's new construction right now. It's pegging a little bit better than what it was doing back in actually the years 1982. Over the past 42 years, our new construction is not as bad as we thought it was. Our existing inventory is down below where it was in 1982. So the accumulation between our new construction and existing inventory is about 2/3 of what it was 40 plus years ago. Here's the big difference. We have 370 million people in the country today. We had 270 million people in the country back 42 years ago. So we've got less inventory now for nearly twice the population. And that is the reason why things are so difficult. However, 1 out of 5 folks who are in a house right now are looking at making a move. Rates are not as much of an issue. I think we'll see a little bit more inventory and things are going to loosen up. We're also, by the way, as far as inventory goes, it's not that much, but it's certainly trending in the right direction. We're 7% higher with our inventory than we were at this point last year, kind of the year over figures. They're still, I mean, just dead on the ground, but we're trending in the right direction. If we see over the next few months some of these folks who look like they want to move start to move, and if we see a little shift in rates, yeah, it's listen, the people who are positioned well, the loan officers who have their act together, they're going to find a way to sustain themselves through 2024. And then the interesting part is in 2025, this is getting a long ways out there. It's kind of like the weather forecast. I trust you tomorrow, but I don't trust you 10 days from now. Mm-hmm. But in 2025, Fannie Mae's got rates in the mid fives through the whole year. And I think anybody, listen, if you can't hack it in the mid fives doing loans, I don't know. Like I said, Costco's still hiring. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to think that we've got greener horizons. We've got greener horizons in front of us. And the other part of it is every single graph you look at, and I don't care what it is, every graph goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And every single time on every graph, doesn't matter what the industry is, when you hit the highest peaks, you come down. And when you hit the lowest troughs, you go up. And that's what we're doing right now. We're hitting the highest peaks with our debt. We're hitting the lowest troughs with our production. These figures are going to have to correct. And that means that the correction is going to be beneficial to the mortgage and real estate industry.
The question is this improvement going to be, what is it comparable to? Is it relative to what it's been the last 2 years, or relative to what? Because I could take confidence in what you're saying, but relative to the last couple of years, you can't really get any worse than what was happened, basically.
Superlatives. You can't get any worse than we've had over the past couple of years. And that, by the way, that statement is factually accurate. You can't. But isn't it interesting? Just 3 years ago, you can't get any better than it was
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's also
Yeah.
factually accurate. It's really kind of this masochistic type of industry, isn't it? Where you're given all this great opulence, where you're living as the king of the county type of thing, and the next thing you know, you're chained up in the dungeons.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to be chained up in the dungeons if you were just a serf or, you know, some of the steerage that was living out there with the rest of us paupers. But to go from the greatest market ever to the worst market is kind of cruel to do. What's going to happen is, Jeff, we're gonna land somewhere in between to a market that's going to feel a little bit more familiar. But this is the most important and poignant point that I want to make to loan officers and real estate agents by extension out there. There's going to be enough opportunity in the market for you to determine where your outcome is going to be. That's the most poignant part. The only thing that a loan officer can control is what his activities are today, making sure that he's prepared, he's got his infrastructure in place, he's going out there, he's creating the right alliances with real estate agents, with referral partners, they have the right systems in place, you have the right technology, and you actually understand how to use this stuff. Like that person, when the market starts to change, is going to come out of the blocks and take a quick head start, right?
Yeah.
For the vast majority of loan officers, and sadly, I know for a fact you know this too, is for the vast majority of loan officers, we're not thinking about tomorrow and how it should be affecting our actions today. And a lot of loan officers are going to come stumbling out of the blocks, and they're going to find themselves trying to pick up ground after it's already too late. So I think a lot of folks feel right now like some of that self-determination has been taken out of our hands. And I think most importantly, we are going to gain a sense of control and self-determination, which in fact we'll be able to realize. But here's the whole thing, guys. I mean, I don't mean to be crude or crass or offensive, but you really kind of have to have your shit together. And it starts today. There will be enough opportunity in a few months, in a couple of months. And again, I think we're starting to see the seedings of this. I think the whole thing is starting to germinate right before our eyes, ever so smallly, but I think that it is starting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because at the time of this recording, we are at the beginning of March. This will be released end of March. So spring is here. It's not here at the time that we're talking. It's the time that you're watching or listening to this. And so I think you got to get off your ass and get to work. And by get to work, I'd like to hear what your opinion of what that means is, because so we talk about, you know, what Fannie and Freddie are predicting. And I would argue that I think they're probably going to be pretty accurate. And I think
so.
you preface
Right.
that based on their size and whatnot. But, and then you couple that with an election year. We know what the cycles do, right? But what does that mean? So what is your advice to someone when you say you want to either be out ahead or you're going to be stumbling out of the blocks? What's your advice to somebody so they're in the former?
Like, what do they need to be doing right now?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a number of different things. First of all, showing up to work with a plan. I think that's huge. It sounds simple, but how many people don't show up to work with a plan and have a meaningful, purposeful day? Showing up to work without a plan is like showing up with a hangover. I've done them both, and they're basically the same outcome. You know, I'll let it slide. I'll get to it tomorrow. They just become pointless days. We need to have purpose-driven days. That's a big part of it. You know, having dreams and objectives about where you want to be with your business, having routines. I'm telling you guys, routines are so important. Having a plan, because we can't just think ourselves to success. We actually have to be able to move our feet. And just I'll tell you what, here, taking away a sense of entitlement. And I don't want to wax and wane too poetically or philosophically about this, but not treating the gifts that we have like obligations. And I see so much of this in the mortgage space. You know, you look at your and this is every market in the country, is look at your real estate agents. Oh, you know, they don't do anything. This, and they're a pain in the ass. And maybe they are, but I got news, you're a pain in the ass too. But really, like, this is also somebody who's given you an opportunity to help them and help their family. And that shouldn't be taken lightly. And I think when we take away our sense of entitlement for our referrals and our B2B partners, and we start to see these opportunities less like obligations, and see see them for what they are, I think that kind of helps our headspace and get us where we need to be. But tactically speaking, it's for me, this one's really simple. time blocking your day, again, having your objective, and sticking in within the time, sticking within the time frames of your time blocking, and not allowing your enthusiasm to waver if you don't get the intended results of what you expect. You have to understand that in this industry, we are the action, we're not the outcome. You have to view your success in terms of your activities and your actions, not the outcome or the lack thereof. And the other one is listen, we're in a technological world. Understanding some of the simple tools that we have available to us is huge. I, I hate to say this because I've been doing videos, as you said, longer than anyone in the industry.
Yep.
I just got acclimated with my CRM, and I'm like, oh, this ain't too hard. This ain't too bad. And going out there and trying to use it in creative, fun ways, guys. We have to engage technologies that are going to allow us to look at multiplying a multiplying factor with our business. So, for example, I'm having this conversation with Jeff right now. Okay. The intent of this is not for Jeff to hear what I have to say necessarily, though I know he's just waiting with bated breath for my next words to come out of my mouth. What the intent is for you to watch this and to create a relationship through the form of communication that he has. Isn't it easier for Jeff to have this one conversation with me than maybe have 1,000 conversations with everybody else? So it becomes a multiplying factor that really affects your business in a way that not a lot of loan officers or real estate agents are taking advantage of. So understanding like the multiplying factors of the tools that are available to you through technology is important. Now, the last point on that one, guys, is the technology that you need to use, and this is very important. This cannot be missed. Technology that you're using is one that is going to enhance you and your exposure, okay? And not things that are going to create lazy opportunities for you. So things that are going to shine a light on you and create those opportunities for you as your brand, that's great stuff. Yeah. That's what we need to work on. Things that are going to give you the opportunity to go small with your business, have those important conversations and convert. Things that are going to replace you, I don't think are very good. But things that are going to enhance you, I think are great opportunities. Yeah. And then it's really acting on it. Because Jeff, I mean, think about this. Like everybody's going out saying, "Oh my God, I got this list of 10 billion people. I'm going to blast 10 billion people today." Oh, great, you're a spammer now. Yeah, that's just awesome. I've got to tell you one more thing on that for a second. But we do have to do that to some capacity, right? We just have to know who and why we're doing it, and that we're providing and we're sending out great content that's going to be sticky. And then getting small with our business, because the truth of the matter is, as loan officers right now, you need to be gauging your success one loan at a time. I know that everybody and a lot of coaches out there say, you're going to get 50,000 deals next month. It's going to be super easy if you just choke down this pill and give me $3,700 a month. I get it. But the truth of the matter is we're going to gauge our success one at a time. So we got to get small with our business. I saw somebody, it's kind of like this. It's you get somebody's newsletter and, it's you get a newsletter from me and it says, and Brian's tips on how to bake your Thanksgiving Day turkey. Anybody who knows me is going to laugh their ass off and say, Brian didn't write this. So having good content, good information, that's sticky information that kind of is geared towards you and what you're doing, I think is a valuable tool. And listen, I'm just gonna say it. Jeff's working on a lot of this stuff right now. He's great at this shit. I've known him for a long time. If you don't have the skill set to do this stuff right now, align yourself with people who do and who've got a track record of doing it. Because here's what you're finding today. Is you're finding a lot of people. There's never been more coaches and and third party tool providers now than ever. But yeah, the vast majority of them are people who just couldn't hack it in the business and are looking at doing it another way. Go find somebody who's got a track record and a history of doing this stuff. Listen, you're mining the gold, and folks like me and Jeff are selling pots and pans. You want to get somebody who's got a quality product and somebody who's got a track record. So that would be my advice when it comes to the technology component, but you got to engage it in some capacity.
I 100% agree. And I gotta add to the spamming comment and the replace versus enhance, which I love that. I love that phrase. It's like some people lean way too far into AI. They lean way too far into automation. It's an enhancement, not a replacement. I received an email today and I immediately made a reel out of it, which was a turn back the clock email. And I'm like, or, or spring forward, I should say, because that's where we are. That's
Right.
when we're recording this. And I just immediately just put my hand in my head. I'm like, please, no, like remove that from your CRM. That is automation at its
Yep.
finest. Nobody needs a reminder. Please stop doing that.
Right.
Get more authentic with the things that you put into your automation tools.
There's so, when you start to look at it, and I think what you're speaking to is these become saturation points that are unbelievably ineffective. I'll tell you what, this is a true story. I changed my birth date on Facebook every month for 6 months. So my birthday is January 8th. So on January 9th, I moved it to February 8th. On February 8th, I moved it to March 8th. On March 8th, I moved it to, and I did it for 6 months, right? So Facebook was telling everybody that I was having my birthday every month. And I got to tell you, I got 50,000 people sending me happy birthday wishes because Facebook tells you to do it. And we're good little robots and we jump off the cliffs just like the lemmings. But it was the same people sending me the same shit. It's like, okay, so how much meaning is there behind something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, and when we have these saturation points, our message and our ability to truly communicate with somebody becomes diluted. You're 100% right on that.
Yeah.
I like the idea, frankly. I like the idea of trying to catch people when my message is not going to be diluted in some capacity. I'll tell you, I think it would be more effective for you to send somebody happy birthday and well wishes on a day that you knew was not their birthday. You'll get 10 times the response from that, not because you're the only one doing it, but because they're going to want to correct you. And that can start a conversation. But dude, you nailed it. Hey, spring back. No, you don't need to know about my turkey, and I don't need to know about your time zone.
100% right. We could go down that rabbit hole for hours. And I don't want to do that because I want to stay on task here. And so I want to bring up something that kind of goes back to you talking about the data and what's coming and whatnot. And you said, you were talking specifically about refinances, but we're not sure what the purchase market will look like. And I've got a buddy, his name is Michael Krein. He's the president of the National REO Brokers Association. Dude he's a wealth of data. And one of the topics that he has been talking about highly lately, and he reaches out to me whenever he's got something super, super, conversational that's important. And he said the one metric, the one segment of home buyers that everybody's missing right now that is just waiting and wanting to jump out of the boat, out of the car, out of whatever it is to buy homes is Gen Z. And we're overlooking them because we had a generation that completely bypassed the home buying process. Millennials, they're still not buying. And then you've got this Gen Z who is just like chomping at the bit to buy. And we're so hyper focused on boomers and Gen X that it's right now currently going over our head. And we think that we can take all of our antiquated systems and strategies and just take it and apply it to a generation that will not respond to that. And so we're starting to make that a big part of our conversation, which is you should be paying attention to this because they're chomping at the bit. But when it comes to the fact that there is no inventory, the fact that the home prices are just way high. I mean, I shouldn't say too high because I don't think they're coming down. What is your take on Gen Z, who half the generation is not even home buying age yet, which I think is part of the reason why people aren't paying attention. But what's your take on that as it relates to the opportunities that might exist with home buying?
Okay, well, it's really twofold. It's one is how do we communicate our message to them? I'll tell you this right now. I see as I've gotten older, I mean, I've been in this business for over 30 years now. I've noticed over the years, like my hesitancy to adopt different technologies and different forms of communication. It's just, I'm getting older and I'm kind of stuck in my ways. This is kind of what happens with the older generations. But the truth of the matter is, if I want to stay relevant and I'm in sales, I need to learn how to speak other languages. And I'm not talking about French, English, or German. Well, I think I could speak English, but you get the idea there. It's really the language of communication right now, and it is fundamentally different. I'm the last generation that remembers a world without computers. My kids were born with iPhones in my wife's womb. They
Yeah.
and they do. We fundamentally and have permanently changed how we communicate, and it's always going to continue evolving. So if you want to communicate with younger generations, your Gen Zs, you have to communicate in the language in which they speak, and that's technology, and that means getting out of your comfort zone and being open to and actively adopting those technologies. And I got to tell you, you have to give it the reverence it deserves, because it's easy to say, I don't know, okay, maybe I'll get to it tomorrow. No, 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 you're not going to get to it tomorrow. You need to give this the reverence it deserves, and you have to sit down and you need to time block and engage these forms of communication, be effective with it, if you want to have a chance at that business. Because I'll tell you what, there's going to be some 20-something-year-old who's speaking the same language, who grew up at the same time, who relate better to them than you if you're not 25 years old. So you have to go out there and make sure you've got the right forms of communication. And the other one is, speaking of age, loan officers for the past 15 years, they've been writing meat and potato loans. That's it. Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie. That's it. Nothing but everything is automated. Everything's right. All of our verifications are automated. Our underwriting's automated. The truth is the fastest growing component of the mortgage industry is going to be your non-QM loans. And there's a ton of products that are available right now. That's a big part of it. I had a conversation with Dave Stevens like a decade ago, and he was talking about Fannie and Freddie, and he's saying how they need to overhaul their underwriting guidelines because they don't represent your average buyer today. And this was a decade ago. Gone are the days of me going and getting a job over at Chrysler, and after 40 years, I get a watch and a plaque, and they, send me off to Grays. When we look at the where kids are at today, the Gen Zers, they're the gig generation. They're the 1099 generation. They're going to hopscotch with their jobs, and a lot of these don't fit into the Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie models that we're all familiar with. It is wildly important that you go back to when we were younger and understand that being a full-time professional loan officer means that you've got all the arrows in your quiver, and you can go ahead and shoot those depending on what your client needs. And you need to be fluent in that language as well, to where you have the confidence to not only have the conversations about those products, but to easily convey those messages to the clients and your real estate referral partners alike. For instance, right now, they've got these blanket loans right now for anybody who owns like 2 or 3 houses. You can go ahead and get one mortgage that's on 10 houses right now. This is readily available, and they're closing every month. Here's the thing that most people don't know. On those loans, you're going to find rates that are lower than market rates that we have right now. Well, hold on. This is a non-QM. It's going to have a higher rate. Not necessarily, because when you have one loan that's going to encompass 10 properties, what you're doing is you're taking that risk and you're diluting it amongst more properties, which makes it a safer loan to get. Why would I not then go out there and do a title search of people who own 3 or 4 more houses? And why don't I go out there and target them and say, hey, there might be a better opportunity with your finances on the table for you, and here's how these loans work. Again, that would be one of many examples. So understanding product availability and being fluent in that language, and then being fluent in the language of communication. This is, and I'll tell you, this is going to happen with or without you and me. This train ain't stopping. There's nothing we can do about it. You either get on board or you miss the train, and we suffer the consequence.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I could go down a rabbit hole with this one, but I want to finish this with one last question.
Sure.
And that is, we have over the last 2 years seen this just incredibly interesting cycle that hasn't happened in a long time. And that is, obviously there's been a lot of loan officers that have just completely either left the industries, or loan officers that are making moves. And we all know why they're making moves. They're not making money. Therefore, they just have to blame someone, right? The mirror is too foggy, right? Right. And so I'd really like to get your take, because I think this is an interesting conversation, because, 5 years ago, the industry was pretty much dominated by the big box. And after Dodd-Frank, brokers effectively went away. Now here we are, and you see this mass movement. But is that a temporary thing, or is that maybe more of a permanent thing? Is there maybe a hybrid model that's going to be the future of the industry, or is it going to go back to the bigger box again, dominating the industry? What's your take on the future of our business?
Well, the hybrid models are already starting. A lot of the wholesale lenders out there, they've got retail divisions, if they admit it or not. Most of them are working in some capacity with real estate agents, and a lot of these larger wholesalers out there, and even independent mortgage banking platforms, what they're doing is they're going out and trying to get real estate agents signed up to become part-time loan officers. You might have saw that Rocket just walked away from that model because it's hard to get real estate agents licensed.
Yep.
But there's always going to be a desire to create some form of evolution in the industry, because here's a dirty little secret that nobody's going to want to hear. Realtors and lenders alike. Here it is. Ready?
Ready.
If your employer could, they would fire you today. All of them. None of them want you. That's the truth. Now, it doesn't mean they don't like you. Doesn't mean they don't appreciate you. That entitlement goes a long ways, and that gratitude goes a long way, not only with how we treat our referral partners, but how the owners and the managers of our companies treat us, right? But the fact is, they want to get rid of you, and they're right for wanting to do that, because you are the most expensive component in a loan. If I can close my production and I don't have to pay you 250 basis points, your ass is gone tomorrow. Every single thing that we have done in the industry for the past 2 decades has been designed to get rid of you. The problem is it has thus far been terribly ineffective. So, of course, our companies are going to continue trying to find hybrid models. In times of desperation, as we are right now, where I heard somewhere upwards that there's going to be 500 bank consolidations or closures, and this includes our non-banks over the course of the next 2 years, there is an enormous wealth of desperation within these companies. And desperate times will force companies into decision-making that they otherwise wouldn't do. Or in my case, what I'm saying, accelerate some of the ideas that they have on the table, which is going to be trying to cut costs by circumventing their most expensive components. That's why it's incumbent upon loan officers right now to understand where your value is. And your value, we've done this before, it's in you. You're your brand. It's not your company. I don't care who your company is. And it's also making sure that you are really kind of focusing on the things that you can control. Because like in life, we think we control a lot. Trust me, there's a small margin between control and being out of control with everything, right? So, but anyways, we need to control what we can control, and that's how we kind of carry ourselves. And the reason why, by the way, technology hasn't been able to get rid of you is here's what they can't do. Dude, I saw this the other day. I was talking with a real estate agent. He's one of the top 1% of 1% of real estate agents in the country. I'll say it, his name's Tom Rapsarda. And he's going to close like 100 buyer side transactions this year. Huge numbers, right? And so I go to him, his whole family, they're all local and everybody knows him. And so I know his brother who wrote loans with him, and sitting talking with him, and he goes, hey man, he goes, what are you doing this weekend? He goes, I'm going to go to the Bulldogs game. The 30-year-old guy is going to a high school football game. And he's going to go sit down to that high school he's going to go sit in the stands, and he's going to look that way, and half the people are going to know him. And he's going to say, hey Bob, how's your daughter doing in soccer? Hey, Joey, I'll see you for coffee next week. That cannot be replaced with technology. So what we need to do is, again, be hyper-focused on what we can control, and that's what's in our own backyard. Seriously, as a loan officer, dominate your backyard. Your B2Bs out there, the top real estate agents out there, you need to get small and dominate. Because you can't automate that.
Yeah.
You can't automate the personal relationship.
I love it, man.
That's the paradox of where we're at, my friend.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. But let's wrap this up by saying, remember what Brian said in the beginning. And the first question I asked is when can we expect change? Here we are at the time of you're listening to this, we are in the spring, and things are going to start shifting and continue to shift in a positive direction. And the action that you take, that you've been taking, and the action that you're going to take right now are going to have a massive impact on your success in the next 6 months. So get your ass off the couch and get to work. All right,
thanks so much, bud.
Yeah, man.